Hi, I'm Beth, and today we're going to talk about The Great Alone by Kristin Hannah. Hi guys, I'm Beth and this is Remark. I just finished reading The Great Alone by Kristin Hannah, and I had to just talk about it right away and make a video because Swoon, it was just so good. In fact, I both audiobooked it and read it on my Kindle so that I wouldn't be constrained by formats. Here's a basic rundown of the plot. It centers mainly around Lenny, a 13-year-old girl. Her mother and father are kind of these post-hippie people living in late 1970s. The father is a Vietnam War vet. He was a POW, and it's left quite a scar on his mind and on his heart. He experiences a lot of PTSD. He has erratic behavior that eventually becomes abusive. And so when his buddy leaves this Alaskan hut to him, they move out to Alaska kind of foolhardily, thinking that it's going to give them the new start that they really need. So they pack up this VW minibus, go to Alaska, thinking that they're going to embark on this great adventure, and then get practically slapped in the face by the elements. Alaska is a harsh, harsh mistress. Beautiful, unspoiled land, but it's also almost like when you think about those frontier people who were homesteading out kind of in the middle of nowhere, didn't really have any sort of support. They were learning how to live off of the land from scratch, and a lot of them just straight up didn't make it. Think about that sort of in Alaska at that time. It wasn't necessarily the wild, wild west. It wasn't completely uncivilized, but when you're living off the grid, there's a lot of self-sufficiency that you have to have. And of course, this family moving out there had none of that. None of that. Cora, the mother, was raised in a rich upbringing and married the father in sort of a rebellious streak. The father was dealing with so many mental issues that were unchecked and untreated. And then Lenny is just this 13-year-old girl who, of course, is dragged along for the ride. So Lenny and her parents, Cora and Ernst, get out to Alaska and find that they are woefully ill-prepared. Woefully ill-prepared. They don't know anything about anything, and Ernst is just really falling apart and becoming more and more violent, to the point that Lenny and Cora kind of live in fear because they have to walk on eggshells to make sure they don't upset Ernst all the time. Cora can't leave him because she keeps thinking of the man he was before Vietnam and how messed up he was and all the horrible things he went through, that she keeps going back to him and back to him and back to him, even though he hurts her, he abuses her. Now, the book alludes to this sort of phenomenon that Alaska has on people, in which they want to go out there, they become disillusioned with life and think that they're going to find this new start, living off the land, getting back to nature, getting back to the beauty within Alaska. They think that somehow Alaska is going to sell salvation for them. But it isn't always the case. They get out there and suddenly realize that the elements are so harsh and living ain't easy. Living ain't easy out there. And so it makes me think in particular of Into the Wild by Jon Krakauer. This is the true story of Christopher McCandless, in which this kid had graduated college. He came from a pretty wealthy family, very disillusioned with what was going on with his family, what was going on with society, literally burned up all of his money, went to Alaska and lived in a van. He died. He died because even though he thought he was well prepared, he wasn't. It was just a basic mistake. He ate the wrong plant and then wasted away. So it's heartbreaking to think about that, heartbreaking to think about all the starry-eyed people who go out to Alaska only to find that it's not going to give them the salvation that they think they're going to find. This is kind of what happened with Lenny and her family. They thought they were going to get out to Alaska, start fresh, find a new life. Didn't quite happen that way. However, Lenny in the process found her home. Now, I did notice the author sometimes, even though she herself, it said in the epilogue that she herself has spent many years living both in the Pacific Northwest and in Alaska, and has heavily researched it, sometimes the writing almost verges on that Alaska as salvation, almost fetishistic view that people can have of Alaska. It's very stark in the reality of living there. It's very frank about what goes on, but sometimes it gets a little bit too, I don't want to say purple prose because I wouldn't go that far, but sometimes it kind of falls prey to its own warnings that it has against the outsiders. But I still think that what Kristin Hannah did here was necessary to show both the draw of Alaska and also the harsh reality of it, to show the incredible beauty that makes the people who do end up belonging there, who make them steadfastly call it home, even more than other people might claim their own homes, with such passion and sense of belonging and sense of self to where it's ingrained within oneself. Now, I really put off reading this for a long time because it was a little bit long. It's not, it's not a big paperweight of a book, but it's a little bit long. It's the same thing I did with The Nightingale, which I still have yet to read. I didn't dive into it because I was afraid that it would be long and I would spend all this time with it and end up just not really thinking the investment of time was worth it. But with this one, oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. I just love this book. I loved following Lenny. I loved, well, I didn't really love all the drama. I didn't love the family drama, but I loved seeing her journey through it, and all of the complexities that go into family. Families aren't perfect. I'm not going to condemn or justify any of the actions of any of the characters because I'm not living their lives. I do know how steadfastly I love my family and how hard I would fight to keep it together even if the waters got really, really choppy. So, excellent book, The Great Alone by Kristin Hannah. Highly recommend it. 5 stars. Pick it up right now and read it if you haven't already, because I know I'm pretty late to the game. I think this book was published last year, and here I'm talking about it as if I just discovered it. It's been discovered for a long time, but still, very good book. Love it. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it as always. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, give me your comments, and I will catch you next time. Thank you so much. Bye.